live.
That was the voiceover right there. Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to Where's Your Heart Live, where we champion where we champion vulnerability as a core human strength, and we aren't afraid of our fuck ups. So there you go.
I'm just I've accepted that I am having some brain fog stuff going on. So this is gonna make for a very interesting show.
It is. It is. And I mean, I'm deeply glad right there that it's a show that requires a little more like gentleness and heart anyway. So it's a good way to enter it, you know.
Exactly. So how was your week, Royce?
Oh God, yeah. No, the week depression ate the weekend. Like that's just where I'm at. Like it was a rough one. And at the same time got to participate in the Democratic Party of Bernalillo County, the elections for all the state stuff, which is big because we're going to have an open congressional seat to fill. So, so pretty cool stuff. And yeah, just really excited about Deb Haaland's appointment.
Absolutely.
Yeah, it's so frustrating to me because the First Peoples cultures are so differently looked at here in New Mexico, and it's really special to live in a place that does that. And at the same time, like I'm reminded that in New Zealand, one of the ways that they're dealing with the colonial nature of their institution is they reserve X number of seats in the legislature for the indigenous population. It's like, these seats are theirs. Like just, and I'm like, we are nowhere near that. Like we're still breaking, this is the first person.
We're still adding the first of everything
like,
that comes out. It's like, this is the first of this person who's won this award. And, we're not there yet. We're not there yet.
First Asian American director nominated at the Academy Awards this week, if I remember correctly. Like it just, every time I see those, there's part of me that's like, yay. And another part of me is like, what the fuck? How did we miss this for so goddamn long?
Exactly.
So yeah, there you go. Welcome to Monday. This may be rant filled. Also, we have to say hi to Kelly. Thank you.
And Kelly, thank you for joining us again on Mondays, every Monday. We appreciate it.
And a big shout out to our listeners. Y'all are stepping up on the YouTube channel. We are 20 away from being able to customize our little URL.
So close. So while you're watching, while you are watching right now, click that subscribe button so you can see all the upcoming shows we have coming, and hit the notification button. That way you know when we post new content or when we go live, which is always live, hence not being seen 5 seconds into the show.
Well,
tell a friend.
And of course, this gets you ahead of the schedule because in like 2 weeks, we stop streaming to Facebook Live. So
exactly.
Go get that YouTube hookup now, y'all. All right.
We're going to do something that may be hard. I feel like, challenges. I mean, I had to acknowledge this week that I find it funny in a way that I am a co-host of a show that champions vulnerability, but I still have a problem being vulnerable, especially with things going on, dealing with, post-divorce stuff and just acknowledging some truths that I don't want to acknowledge, and then of course, sharing those feelings. I've always been a person in the sense that, there's people out there that have like a lot worse going on in their life than I do. Like, I don't want to bog anybody down with my issues. I don't want to, even though I have people say, you need to talk, I'm here.
Because that's not how human beings work.
Yeah.
Like, it's one thing for me to just monopolize, if you and I were sitting at a coffee shop and I just monopolize the whole thing crapping on you, like, that's all right. That's not helpful. But like most of the time when we're vulnerable, when we're actually sharing what's going on, it inspires the other person. Like we're social animals.
Yep.
Like,
so
I
will definitely say that I am grateful for having this show because it's, in a sense, it's helping me work on something that I thought I was good at, but it's only limited. I'm limited at how vulnerable I can be. It's like when I allow it, I'm still controlling, how vulnerable I can be. It's like, okay, well, it feels right to be vulnerable now with this particular topic, but not this one. So I just, it's something obviously that I got to work on. So I'm grateful for having the show that I can, be a part of every week, and it just keeps chipping away, chipping away at that hard, need to be a certain way persona. So,
oh God, that's such a hot button for me.
mm-hmm.
I've been practicing vulnerability for probably 15 years, and it's still a practice. Like it's still just, it's an intention and a like practice. It's never gotten easy for me. I don't know. I guess maybe it's different for other people, but that's where it's at for me. And yeah, I'm grateful honestly for our two guests today. When I saw this on the schedule and you're like, we need some more folks, and I posted to Facebook, tell me about your rock bottom stories. I was shocked at what came in. And it just, like, some of these folks I've known for a decade or more, and had no idea that these things were going on in their lives. And so just really grateful to have the space, to have two folks who are willing to come on a live stream and talk about the shit. To me, that's a big point of my gratitude. And I know our guests will do that. Will do a good job with this, but just to remind people that when we're talking about this stuff, that it's not the oppression Olympics here. That the shit that we are shoveling for ourselves right now is the shit we're shoveling, and if that's the, I just don't want to be comparing the shit that we're shoveling, because we all got to shovel our own shit.
Exactly.
So I guess that's the thing that I'd put out there, is just to remind us that that's part of being present for each other in this. Because yeah, these are going to be some stories today.
Well, the one thing I want people to walk away from is that no matter, it's like, yeah, people have their own stuff that they're dealing with and have to get through. But if anything, I'm hoping today shows that you can get through it. It's possible to get through it and see the other side and build from that. So I hope that's something that our viewers walk away from today.
That's
in the sense, because I look at these guests that they could have, and I feel a lot of people, it's hard for some, it takes longer for some find their own time. But I just always feel like this is a prime example that even when you think there's no way I can get through this, and I've had moments this week that I even thought that it's like, yeah, you know what, you can reach a point that you're like, I can't get past this. I will never get past this. And then I look at our guests and I'm like, okay, they did it. So it's doable. It may take time, but I feel like that's a moment that I could look at and go, okay, I can do it. I can move on from something that I thought was going to destroy me.
I think honestly, my big thing is I just hope people get to experience the power of sharing things that we don't talk about, like that our story, even just regular people, our guests are not like superstars or anything like that. They're just
regular
normal
people.
human beings that that we all know, and they've got these incredible stories behind them, and just the power of listening to each other and being present to each other and vulnerable to each other. That for me is Well,
let's not keep everybody waiting. I think everybody needs to meet our guest. And the first one is Bunnie Cruse, who I am proud to say that I've known for, God, I think it's been almost close to 20 years. She is a proud Latinx trans woman and activist that has a passion for making sure every person's basic needs are met. She is a recovering addict, 15 years drug-free as of March 17th of this year, and 2 years alcohol-free on May 4th of this year. She wants everyone to know that there is life after addiction and homelessness. So I am proud to have Bunnie on the show.
Yay!
Bye, guys.
Yay!
Yay!
And,
Thank you.
yeah, thank you for being here, Bunnie.
Thank you for having me.
And our second guest writes that he's a Hispanic male that's tried to turn his life around and be a better person, and in the process has tried to help others where he can. He wants people to know not to give up on yourself, and when you can, pay it forward. And I would add to it, like, I feel like his story has some interesting complexities, as he was just telling us in the intro, like just realizing that he had some behaviors just like 5 years ago that he's like, I these are done, and just to pivot and shift and move forward in a different direction. So let's bring Kal out here.
Hey, Kal.
Hey, how's it going?
Thank you for being on the show today.
Yeah,
Sure.
yeah.
Glad to be here.
So I feel like it's probably good to start with, like, when you think of your rock bottom, what was the moment when you looked around and went, it doesn't get worse than this? Like, what was that moment?
For me, I had two rock bottom moments. My first one, I had no more drugs. I had no way to get to where the drugs were except my feet. So I started walking. Well, I sat down at a bus stop on Louisiana and Gibson by the Veterans Memorial. There's a little bus stop right there. And I sat down, I fell asleep, and I woke up and I prayed to my higher power, which is La Virgen de Guadalupe. And I said, if you change me, you kill me or change me. But if you change me, I will do stuff in your son's name. And I'm not a religious person per se, but if you change me, I will do stuff in your son's name for Christmas every year. And I've done that. But it didn't work. I got arrested a few hours later. And then that was in October. That following March, it was St. Patrick's Day, early in the morning, like maybe 5 o'clock in the morning. The sun was coming up. I was on Central and Alvarado, and higher than a kite. And the sun, I was walking, and the sun from the post office on Alvarado hit me. And no lie, I heard Oprah Winfrey say, "Aha!" in my head. And I said, "What are you doing, Bunnie? You are brilliant. You can change the world." And I have been drug free since that day.
Whoa.
In 2006, St. Patrick's Day, 2006.
That's incredible. God. Oh. Kal, you got. What do you have? Where are you at with this?
Well, I guess my rock bottom was honestly, it was when I had to go to an apartment complex and sleep in a laundry room because I had nowhere else to go. Yeah. And I'd been walking around all day. It was about midnight. I was cold, and I was cutting a shortcut through apartment complex, and I heard some dryers going, and I opened the door, went in there. It was warm, and I just curled in the corner and went to sleep.
Yeah.
So, I had been couch hopping for probably about a year at this point, and I just ran out of couches. Yeah. And so the only thing I could do was start walking, and so I started walking. And that was the first place I found that was dry and warm.
Yeah.
So, yeah. So I spent roughly 2 days there, and then moved from there to like a homeless camp under a bridge. I was there for about a week. And then I went to the government aid facility and spent about a week every morning trying to. All they did, you show up, you get a number, and they only took that many people. And every day I had to get there a little earlier, and eventually I got a number, and then they gave me a coupon for a hotel downtown that was a very bad place, and that's where I ended up for about 2 months, I guess, before I was able to get a job and pull myself out.
Yeah. These stories are always, for me, they're always, like, I remember being on food stamps and on government assistance, and I remember it being like a solid 30-hour-a-week job, at least in the Bay Area, just trying to qualify for government benefits. which it was infuriating. And so I guess every time I hear these stories, I just wonder how many of us have these brushes, how close we came, to not being able to come back. So just, deep appreciation for both of you.
I was resigned to die. Like I was resigned like this. I'm going to die on drugs. Yep. There's no way out for me. This is how I'm going to die.
Yeah.
But I gave myself one more chance. And I'm so glad I did.
Well, I know Royce asked, like, what was your rock bottom? My question would be, I feel like you don't know how you ended up there without looking back at how it all began. Would you be willing to talk about that it led to that moment? That
it's always a chain of crazy
It's
shit.
a chain of events that lead to that.
No, I come from a normal, everyday, working class military family. Mm-hmm. My dad's a lifer in the military. We grew up on military bases with a family that loved me for who I am. And I've always worked in bars since I was 21, and I started doing drugs. And I always wanted to meet the next guy, the connect. I wanted to stretch my dollar as far as I could, I guess. You know what I mean? And I just kept getting deeper and deeper and deeper into the drug scene, where I was dealing with some scary people. And I'm lucky I'm alive. And it just they always say that first high is the best high, and you're always chasing it. So that's what led me there, is wanting to get that better high, wanting to just chasing that better high.
Yeah. And before you knew it, you were on Gibson and
do you know what I mean? I would walk around, and I have friends that own businesses in Knob Hill, so I would cut back through the alley. I wouldn't walk by your offices. Do you know what I mean? Like, I didn't want people seeing me homeless looking. And I had broken teeth. I was really skinny. And it just, I lost track of everything. I lost track of my life, just trying to get that better high.
Yeah. Chasing it. Yeah. Kal, how about you, man?
Oh, yeah. You got to start in right away with the hard ones, huh? Well, so this is over a course of a lot of years, but basically my mom and my father split up when I was around 2. He stayed in Missouri. My mom came to California. My mother worked usually 2 or 3 jobs a week to make sure that I wasn't in a bad part of town, went to the right schools, et cetera, et cetera. But when she wasn't working, my mother was the proverbial disco queen. Like, she literally went to discos 7 days a week. She'd get off work, come home, and go. And I spent 90% of the time by myself. But she would make up for that because we'd spend the weekend at the beach, or we'd go to Disneyland, or she always tried to make sure that she was present while she wasn't present. So my grandparents took care of me a lot, and I raised myself mostly. I learned how to cook at a very young age because of that. I was making full meals by 6 or 7. I would get myself up to go to school. I'd walk home. I was I was supposed to be in gate classes. I was overly smart for my grade, but my mother didn't know how to deal with that. So I never got in those classes or stayed in those classes. And then things started turning around. This is also the start of the downfall. So up until this point, my whole family, uncles, everybody else is military or cops. My mom eventually became a correctional officer. Actually, she was a cop first, then became a correctional officer. And during that period, she met this guy named Danny. And Danny was around for a good couple of years, I think. I was 9 or 10, somewhere in there. And he really turned my life around. I mean, he was a strong father figure. He taught me how to shoot. He took me camping. We went four-wheeling. I mean, you name it. I had a father finally. And then one night they broke up because he couldn't handle having a kid. He wasn't prepared yet to do that. I mean, this would have been, my mom is exactly 20 years older than me. So if I'm 9, she's like 29. He was right around the same age. I think he might have been a couple years younger.
Yeah.
So he just disappeared for like a week. And then one night he calls my mom and says, you know what? I miss you guys. I love Drew. I want you guys in my life. Let's get married. Let's do it. And then he hit an overpass of a freeway. His car caught on fire, and a semi driver tried to yank him out of the car before it exploded, and he didn't make it.
Oh.
So, yeah, so that was rough. My mom had a lot of issues after that, and there were a lot of men in her life at that point, and she ended up with one, and I got a brother out of it, and they ended up married, and I was forgotten at that point. So I rebelled. I was a bad kid. I went to supermarkets and I sold GI Joes. I told off my teachers. I didn't show up to school. Freshman year in high school, I missed 90% of the days. I had a 90% truancy rate. They sent the truant officers to my house, and my mom worked, so no one was there. I answered the door, but I would still show up, and my teachers were whatever, because like I'd show up to my English class and I'd show up on test day and it'd be the final and I'd get 90%, but I didn't turn in a single page of homework. So most of the teachers just let me be, and it downgraded from there. I would steal money from my mom and Mike, who was my stepdad at the time. He wasn't the nicest guy. He was very manipulative, and to be honest, he's a total asshole and a womanizer, 100%. And he cheated on my mom constantly, and that created a lot of problems. And then they start getting rocky, and they're splitting while talking about staying together. And then my blood father shows up out of nowhere when I'm 15 now, and so I go stay with him for like a month.
Oh wow.
Yeah, never seen this guy in my life.
Oh.
And he's in Texas, so my mom basically ships me off there for a month because she's dealing with, basically, I found out after the fact that they were going through the divorce and they were separating and they were fighting, and her intention was actually for my father to take me, and he had talked to me about it, and that was just a whole drawn out problem. So eventually it took 2 months, maybe 2.5, and I was sent back. And then it kept going downhill from there. I would steal more, and I would show up to school less. I eventually had to drop out and went to continuation school. I think the first time I got kicked out was 18. I took my mom's bank card and I took like $1,000 out of her account for no reason. I was just mad.
Yeah.
Right. And so she, her mortgage payment bounced and turned into a big fight. And then, I left and stayed with some friends, and then eventually came back, and, rinse and repeat.
Yeah.
The anger was still there. I was still having problems. And it just spiraled from there. I went to jail a few times. I did the wide selection of drugs, but I never became an addict. Lots of drinking, couch hopping for years, and there was a lot of resentment with my mother and me. I mean, one time she threw me out, and I called a friend, and they just showed up, right? They used to irritate her that I had friends that would just show up. And she like chased me out of the house and started screaming at him like, "Oh yeah, run off with lovable Tony. He's always going to be there for you." And so eventually I just stopped going back. And because even when I did go back, I just do something.
Yeah.
I would, and it mostly came down to just, I wouldn't do anything at the house. I wouldn't help her. And I would steal her money. I mean, anytime I was living with her, that's what would happen.
Yeah.
And so I ended up on the street and hopped from couch to couch, which eventually you run out of couches when you don't have a job and don't want to get one.
Yeah.
And so that's where I was, and that's how I got there.
Yeah. It's always people like anytime I see these issues addressed, people want to go to one issue and say this is what causes this, and I'm always I guess I'm heartened to hear both of y'all's stories, because it also, like, mine was that way too. Like, we didn't end up because of in poverty because of one thing. It was a whole series of decisions that starts years before, or not even decisions. Sometimes it's just shit happens. You know. You got another question ready, Teresa? I got one here.
Well, we've heard how it started.
Yeah.
What the moment was. Was there a person? Was there someone that, when you realized your aha moment of, okay, this needs to stop? Was there a person that was there, or was it just you fighting to make things better?
For me, in hindsight, my family was there for me, but I didn't. I had already lied and cheated and stole, and I didn't never really stole from my family, but I already lied and cheated and stole so much that I didn't feel I had anyone except my druggy friends.
Yeah.
And so
those voices, right?
so
Yeah.
I cut those friends off, but I was at my house with my family, and it was just me and La Virgen de Guadalupe. Do you know what I mean? Like, every day it was just, and then slowly I opened up. I got close with my family again, and my sister and my niece had a car, and they let me use that to go to work. I got a job, on April 13th, 2016. Like, I got a job at a place that collected clothes for thrift stores. And I got this little job, and I went from bartending and hairdressing, to making, I think it was $6.25 an hour, $7.25 an hour, and it was these people. It was, it was my family, and it was my coworkers at this new job, who, I've only had worked in the gay life, the gay bars, and hairdressing. To me, that's the queer bubble. I had never worked in the straight world before, and these ladies, a lot of them had the same experiences I did, and where I went to work, they hired people with backgrounds, and so I stayed there for a while, but I met friends. I didn't have friends that weren't part of the LGBT community somehow and weren't an active addiction. So I met these new group of friends, and it was life changing. Do you know what I mean? Like, to be around people who were going through what you were going through and wanting a better life for themselves. So I was lucky. I had a support system, and that my sister and my niece let me use their car to go to work, and I'd always been really big in fundraising and doing drag shows for charity, and so I relied. I had met my friend Aaliyah, a young drag queen, and she idolized me, and I told myself I can't do drugs because she doesn't know that person, and I never want Aaliyah to know that person.
Oh wow!
This I've told her this before. So I always stayed on the up and up, so she never had to meet that Bunnie. And then I met more people, and I met more people that never knew that Bunnie. But I always let them know that Bunnie existed. I just want them to meet him. And my parents got married in Waikiki in 1969, during the Vietnam War. And I used to, like, dream and dream and dream about going to Hawaii. Like, I know there's something in me. It was like I was being called home. Like, I just wanted to go to Hawaii so bad. So one year, for this organization I'm a part of, they have a chapter in Hawaii, and I was the fundraising chair. I was called the Empress. And one of the past Empresses, one of my best friends for years, named Mercedes, and her husband said, "We want to take you to Hawaii for their coronation."
Oh.
And I said, there's no way, like I'm going to Hawaii, and we went, and when I got off the airplane and at the uh, what airport in Honolulu, it sounds hokey, but the spirit of aloha just hit me, and
Oh,
I felt like healed. This was 10 years ago. It'll be 10 years this October, and I just felt healed. And then I've been back every year for 10 years except this past October, and
oh,
I think that's where my true healing began, is when I got into the water in Waikiki. The first day that we're there, we went in the water to wash off, and and that's where my healing and my self forgiveness began, and
yeah.
at Queens Beach in Waikiki, and I've gotten to this shirt I have on. I just got in the mail from Hawaii. One of my sisters in Hawaii sent it to me, and I put it on right away. And every so often I'll just tell my mom, because I've taken my mom to Hawaii, and to meet my friends out there, my family out there, and I just tell my mom sometimes, like, I can't believe I have family in Hawaii. You know what I mean? Like, I go to Hawaii. I don't go
I
back.
just want to point out you have a friend right now that's on saying hi to you.
Yeah,
But yeah, I love
aloha.
from
Yeah, yeah. So Hawaii plays a big part of my healing and my recovery, and
I love
yeah,
that it's a place of joy, like it's a place of pleasure. It's
uh,
a place of for you, like that's so huge.
yeah. And when I get there, they tell me welcome
Mm,
home, and um, I take it to heart. You know what I mean? Like Hawaii is my second home.
yeah.
So I'm very that was. That one person, I didn't have a person, I had Hawaii. Do you know what I mean? That
yeah.
was, but I always knew I wanted to go. That I needed to go to Hawaii.
Yeah. Oh,
And
oh, that's incredible.
thank you.
Yeah.
So what about you, Kal?
Well, that's kind of a twofold story again there. So when I was talking about being homeless, I summarized a lot of that. I mean, obviously there's a lot more there being over an almost 2-year period, but
Mm.
I had actually gotten myself out of it. I was staying at a friend's house and on his couch, and I think I got down to like 160 pounds because I wasn't eating, there wasn't any food. He
Yep.
was just poor too. I mean, we're all working minimum wage jobs if we were working,
Yep.
and I just went walking one day and I passed an Army recruiter and I walked in and signed up and I went to MEPS, passed everything, did my ASVAB, I was all set. I was gung ho getting ready to ship out. Went back to stay with my mom, and I did not steal from her that time. And I was all set to go. I was packed, ready to go. Went down on my deployment date, had my bag, said I can talk to all my recruiters, did my thing, got on the little bus van thing, and getting ready to go to MEPS so I could ship out. And we got stopped by MPs, and I got pulled off because my recruiter lied in my paperwork, and I was given a discharge on the spot.
Oh my
It
God.
wasn't. I was an other than honorable instant discharge. So yeah,
Oh,
and then so I was right back into it. I think I was at my mom's house for maybe a week or two before the fighting started again, and I left. And then that's about a week later is when I ran out of couches, and
yeah.
that's when that process started. So so from there, like I said, I went and got the government assistance, which isn't quite the same thing as like a regular food stamp thing. It's a loan. I had to pay it all back.
Oh,
This was in Texas or
No, it was California.
California? Oh my
Yeah,
God.
so because I was male with no kids, I didn't qualify for welfare.
Yep. Yep.
So all I could get was government assistance, which in that county was a loan process. So I literally lost 50% of my wages for about 4 or 5 years after that.
Yeah.
But so I got that, stayed in the hotel, and they were putting in a 98-cent clearance center. about, I don't know, 5, 6, 8 miles. I don't know how far away it was. So I walked down there, spent a day, however long, walking down there, did the interview, walked back down there, did the second interview, walked back. They opened up, hired me. So I spent, I don't know how many weeks walking all those miles to the dollar store, walking all the way back. My mom finally, she got me a bus pass. And when the schedules could line up, I took the bus. Otherwise, I had to walk it.
Yeah.
Then a friend of mine, I just ran into him out of the blue. And him and his buddy had a 3-bedroom apartment. And it was just him and his buddy, and they had an extra bedroom. And I was working, so I took on that 3rd bedroom, and it was closer, but still had to walk. And yeah, just kept doing that. And eventually I worked there, and then I worked at KB Toys when they existed. And yeah, and that's how I got myself out of it.
I'm struck by like the similarity of the spiral downward and the spiral upward. You know what I mean? Like, and not to think in a binary about this, but there's a grind to both of them that is disheartening. At least it was for me when I was dealing with that stuff. Like, just like, 3 steps forward, 2 steps backward, 3 steps forward, 2 steps backward. Sure felt like the fall was a lot faster, I guess, for me. It was still a chain of bullshit, but but the climb out, it was always that dance. So, Kal, you mentioned something. Well, okay, so let's just go here. Why is it we don't talk about these stories? You
mean like me personally, or like men?
Yeah. Well, and there's I guess one of the questions is, Bunnie, do you talk about where you were 20 years ago, 15 years ago? Do you talk about that? How often do you talk about it? Because one of the things Kal and I were mentioning to each other is, as men at least, we don't talk about this.
I will talk about it whenever it hits me.
Yeah.
That whenever it hits me, I was at the Gay Pride Parade a couple years ago with our congresswoman at the time, Michelle Lujan Grisham, and we were talking, and I pointed out to her I was arrested right there for prostitution, and but she knows my story. She knows my story, so I'm not ashamed. Because I'm not ashamed of my story. But to answer your question, I think we don't talk about it because we're ashamed.
Shame, yeah.
And shame is from the devil. So shame isn't from the good universe. Shame is from the devil. The devil wants to keep us shamed and shackled to our embarrassment and to our addictions. And so I talk about whenever it hits me and I want to talk about it, or if I see someone going through something similar that I could, just sharing, hey, like I got out, you can get out, sharing. I share it wherever I can, whenever.
And this is immediately the reaction that pops up in comments from Pilar.
That's my sister. That's my sister. Yep. Yeah.
Thank you for giving yourself one more chance. The world's a better place with you in it.
Yeah. So that I think it's just shame. We're ashamed. Yeah. But how many people are ashamed right now? My parents weren't the best parents, but they were the best parents they could be. I had, when I was younger, I had resentment towards them. But as I got older, I understood they did their best. When they knew better, they did better. And if I want to be forgiven, I had to let that go, and I had to meet them where they were, and they had to meet me where I was. And I will tell you this: my dad is a badass motherfucker, and so is my mom, and they're my best friends. My best friend. I never thought growing up that my dad would be my best friend, but I knew my mom would be, But to have both my parents be my best friend, my biggest advocate, my biggest fans, and not just for me, they're like that with all my siblings and all my friends, So I'm very blessed, But it's because I'm not ashamed. I'm not ashamed of where I come from.
So shame's a huge part of it.
Yeah.
Kal, what else you got, man?
As far as what? I don't remember the question.
No, like what keeps you from talking about it? What are the pressures that you experience? I've got some things to pop off on here, but
yeah,
but I want to hear from you first.
Well, I mean, there's like right now I'm like three sides of me. Okay, there's my real life, my personal life, then there's my airsoft life that I developed over a decade, and then now there's the AmpGuard life, which I'm developing. So there are large groups of people into the hundreds that don't know Drew, and in those groups there are a few people, I can name a couple, that are intertwined are in all those groups.
Yeah.
Right.
The crossovers.
Right. And one of those is my really good and probably my second oldest friend, Dave. I met him the first time in 93, and then we became really good friends in 95, and he had his own struggles. And honestly, I don't think he knows any of this about me. I had another friend, Troy, who was there for some of it. He only knows a part of it. He lived down the street from me when I was in the hotel, but he had an apartment over a restaurant. So still same part of town, but a better quality of life. But Dave was doing his own thing. So I don't know if he's on right now. Oh yeah, he is. There he is. Bryn Bar.
Speaking up.
Yeah.
Only in two. I do not.
Yeah, he was doing his own thing, and he had his own life problems to deal with, and we would hit each other, and then we'd not see each other for a couple of years. Then we'd hit each other and not see each other for a couple of years. So, I mean, but we've been friends since 95.
Yeah.
And but like I said, I don't think he knows any of this. And a big part of it is for me now is that, I mean, other than what I'm doing right now, and opening this up to everybody who's listening, is that I don't like that part of me, and I don't like what I had to go through, and I definitely don't like what I did to my mother and my friends, and just people in general. I wasn't a nice person, and I was a selfish person. I was a mean person. I mean,
I want to push back on that, because I hear that the behaviors were selfish and mean, but I guess I want to open a space where I question, like, what's the difference between who we are and how we behave? You know what I mean?
I don't know how to answer that, honestly. I mean, at that time, I was just angry.
Yeah.
I was just rage filled, and
you were her little boy.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, my downfall was Danny dying, and that you could follow every problem I've ever had from that forward, right?
And I just want to tell you this, Kal. I don't know you until today, but I just want to tell you I'm sorry that little boy Kal had to live through that.
I appreciate that more than you could ever know. So, I mean, it wouldn't be anything for, to go to a party and then halfway through it, get in a fight and, and just fight it out and see what happens. I mean, I know Dave had multiple times where he had the same issues. We didn't necessarily go to the same parties and start the same fights, but that was just the way of things then, I mean, we were in our late teens, early 20s, and raged. We didn't have much else going for us, and I think that's why me and Dave like got along so well, even though we disagreed on so many things, but we had so many things that were so similar, and I think we're just kindred souls. But it wasn't like we talked about our feelings and what was going on in our lives. We just had common ground, like something so stupid, like a Nintendo game, Romance of the Three Kingdoms. We would literally play that game 20 hours straight, right? And then go hang out at Lions, right? And then I wouldn't see him for a year, I mean, and we've just and every time we've met up, it's always been like I saw him yesterday, even when we can't stand each other, we'll go do our separate things, but we're communicating, and I talk to him all the time on Facebook, and he's still back in California. And thank you, Dave. I appreciate that.
Yeah. So Dave posted on we're still getting into the habit of making sure we read these comments.
We got to restore the podcast.
Right. Sorry.
So Dave threw a comment on YouTube. When I met Drew, he was always a very generous person. A lot of this is surprising, but I completely understand. I had my own demons. I think that's the and made our girlfriends mad.
Yeah. So what he's talking about, and something my wife mentions to me all the time, and I still do it, is if you're my friend, I will give you anything I have at any time. And I carried that even in airsoft. I would bring, people would yell at me about it, and it's funny. I would bring trunks of stuff because I had spare parts.
Yep.
And if somebody's gun broke, I would give them the parts. If they needed something, I would give it to them. And I'd have a trunk full of gear. I had a trunk full of camo. I had a trunk full of parts.
See, that sounds like the actual Kal.
Yeah, and that's something I've always done. My friends, I've always given 100% loyalty, and even to strangers in a setting. But you take me outside of that setting, right? And this was airsoft was one of the defining lines of improvement. And I had met my wife. I think I was 28 when I met her. So airsoft started at 29, maybe. Mm-hmm. It was just shortly after meeting her. So she started getting a lot of the good stuff, but we can talk about a lot of bad stuff in there too. But I had started trying to be less angry and do more things, and I had gotten better jobs, and I had done stuff. I nailed a job in the Bay Area working on high capacity redundant storage arrays, which is just a fancy term for backup hard drives.
No.
And
thank you.
Yeah. And I was making really great money, but I had an apartment that I only saw every other weekend. And then the .com crash, and I lost my job, and I ended up at Best Buy working part-time. And that's actually where I met my wife. But, the road there and talking about it, it's like every time I meet new people, I don't want them to know how terrible of a person I was. Right. And I don't, I just want them to know who I am now.
All right. I'm throwing this out there. All right.
Yeah.
So Kal and I met because we were both, much like Bunnie, we're part of this, of a national organization that has regional representation. And we were on the national governing board basically for Amtgard together. So we were elected from our kingdoms as monarchs to go represent at this
Your Majesty.
Your Highness. And those meetings, our year, we actually started to change some things so that the group could do business outside of that one day-long session. But I think it was 8 or 10 hours that year, and it was one of the shorter ones. It was brutal. But Kal was really neat to me because I got the sense, at least, that Kal and I wouldn't see eye to eye on everything, and we should probably not spend too much time talking politics. But it didn't matter, because when we sat down to look at something, we were going to have a reasonable discussion, and we were going to respect each other's perspective. So that to me feels like who you actually are and stuff. And I guess when I hear all of the rest of this, it only deepens my respect for how you got there. And it deepens my awe of what it took for you to get there from these places, from living under a bridge. So I guess that's just here for my testimony as somebody who knows you from these things and from wrestling a bit with you. That much love, brother. This is...
Yeah, and I appreciate that. And like I said when we were talking earlier, and my wife will tell you up and down, I haven't always been a nice person, even to my wife and my friends, especially my wife. And we've talked about that, and I've apologized for actions, and I've tried to change. One of the big points of that turnover was moving to Texas.
Yeah.
Honestly, in a weird roundabout way, I have to thank my father for that. We actually live about 2 hours away from my father. And so long story short, he is an extremely mentally and verbally abusive to my brother and sister, his wife, strangers. And Yeah, I think it was about our third or fifth time going out to dinner with him, and we came back, and I was talking to my wife, and I said, "Do I do that to you?"
Oh God.
And she's all like, "Every day."
Oh
And
God. What
it
was
just
that like to hear?
it was heartbreaking, but it flipped a switch, and I decided I wasn't going to be that way anymore.
Yeah.
And I've tried very hard, and I mean, I'm still human, and I still get angry and stuff, but I try very hard not to do that, and I try very hard not to demean people and talk down to her,
Yeah.
or uh, be hostile or aggressive or intimidating, and I mean, that's just who I was. It was like every fiber of my being was like every obstacle has to be met with yelling, screaming, and anger.
Yeah.
And I didn't really realize that till I saw my father
Mm.
and how he treated his wife and my brother and sister. And
Wow.
yeah, so I'm gonna say it was 6 months before I joined AmpGuard. I think maybe a year at
Yeah.
most. And yeah, I just decided I wasn't gonna be that guy anymore. And so I've tried every day to be better.
Yeah.
Is all I can say. I mean, we all have our weaknesses, and I still fail, but I try to recognize it and try to apologize to my wife for how I acted, and I try to fix it. I'm better at it some days than others, and it's probably going to be a lifelong struggle. But
That
I
pivot
try.
point. That pivot point, the vulnerability of asking someone you love, do I do this to you? Like realizing, shit, I might be looking in a mirror here, and to hear their response, like that, you talk about vulnerability, that is,
I wanted to take a moment to step back to some of our comments. Mary
yeah,
has a
we've got a list
question.
here.
Now that you're not
Yes.
using, what coping mechanisms do you use for stress, anxiety, etc.?
Mine was doing charity work. And that just caused
Mm.
me more stress and anxiety, to be honest with you. But it was different stress. It was stress and anxiety that I could handle. And you know, in recovery, I never did all the 12 step. I've been to AA meetings, but in recovery, a big thing is recovery through service. And so I threw myself into service of others and volunteering. And my sister can tell you when she was, she was having some hard times a few weeks ago, and I said, "Go volunteer, go
Yeah.
do something, get out of yourself." And
Yeah.
I got out of my head, and
Here's Mary
Kevin,
saying
props to
Mama
your mom.
Cruz.
yeah,
Mama
Mama,
Cruz is
yeah,
Mama Cruz is awesome.
LGBTQ
yeah,
Albuquerque peeps
yeah,
mom.
yeah. So, just doing for others, getting outside of my head, and getting outside of my wants and needs, has really helped me. Not just stay focused, but it's helped me in my personal life and my professional and hopefully soon to be political life. Is just seeing outside of myself.
Yeah.
Knowing that there's a lot of cows and bunnies walking around, and me, being nice, just smiling at people. We can't so much with the mask on, but just being kind, because you never know what anyone else is going through.
Exactly.
You can change someone's life by being nice to them, just by saying,
Yeah.
"Hey, what a great smile you have today, Cal." That
Yep.
can change someone's life.
Yeah.
So that's what's helped me.
And you got to call it for Shelley. No shame in moving upward.
Yeah.
And from Kelly as well. Friendships are like that. So amazing. Chosen family. That was to Cal and Dave.
Yep. No, so much there.
Yeah. It's definitely been an interesting few years, and I think AmpGuard is helped me a lot to refocus my energy and work at helping people.
Yeah.
And we got a comment from Dusty Marshall.
Yeah. So Dusty's part of our AmpGuard community. He's one of the knights that I love him. He's a great dude.
It was my night.
He's your knight, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
Did they knight you yet?
Yeah, they did.
All right. I
First
thought
week
so.
of January. Yeah.
Congratulations, man. That's huge.
Thank you. Yeah.
Yeah, Dusty's comment. Oftentimes our actions are circumstances of our environments. But but know you didn't sit and stay in that, but progress forward gives me hope, brother.
Thank you, sir.
Absolutely.
I appreciate that.
Yeah, that's always the challenge. Like I like to say when there's choice, and let's be clear, there's not always choice, but when there's choice, we make the choices we can live with. And it really sucks that like some of those choices are pretty shitty, but when you look at what the alternatives were, they were even shittier. So
yeah,
I think there's an important perspective there, at least from the times I've been on the Rocky.
I call it planting corn. We're always planting corn.
Yep.
You know what I mean? And sometimes we're gonna argue over what we do with the corn once it's like ready to harvest. But the most important thing about planting the corn is that we're doing it together. And it doesn't matter if we're gonna use it to make tacos or booze or gas, car fuel. We can hash that out later. Yeah.
No. There's only one correct answer. Tacos.
Yeah, and as long as we're planting the corn together, and we're gonna harvest it together, and but you have to know when to harvest and when to let it grow. So I always just call it, hey, we're planting seeds. We're planting corn. So Teresa, if you ever see corn, people talking about corn, it's because
I know. I know.
I talk about planting corn like we're planting corn, and I always have many fields, and some are being harvested, some are being planted, some no one know about, and we should all have all those fields.
I would just like to point out something that when I met Bunnie, when I started getting involved in the LGBTQ community, yay for tacos.
Yes.
Pretty much Bunnie's name came up repeatedly of who do I need to talk to about this or that. And I with Pride and Equality, we started an award called Models of Hope. I really just felt like there were people in the community that needed to be seen that weren't being seen. I think there's a lot of people that are always getting acknowledged, but there's some that are doing the work and don't. And so,
and that was my starting off point. That's where a reference point to me. That's when my life changed.
Well, I have to say, I felt like Bunnie got a bum rap because when we announced she was honoree, there was actually a protest of people that didn't want her to have the award. And their reason for it was, do you know her past? Do you know what she's done? Do you know all the stuff she went through? And I said, yes, which is exactly why she's getting the award, because she could have sat down and kept doing it. And she said, no, I'm not doing this. And look at where she's at now. So
I'm the Queen Mother.
Exactly.
That's my title in my organization. I'm the Queen Mother.
I am blessed. Yeah, I'm blessed every day to have Bunnie in my life. Like, I mean, I couldn't imagine anybody. If you haven't met Bunnie, it's just, trust me, the minute you do, it's like your life has changed, and it's changed for the better.
Thank you. Thank you.
So we're wrapping up here. What are you walking away with today?
I'm still working that out, honestly. I mean, there's a lot I shared here today that I don't, like I said, I mean, my oldest friend, what are we on, 25 years, learned new stuff about me today. And new friends like Dusty. I don't know. I'm sure he's going to have questions, and I don't know if I'm prepared to answer them, but I will. And, I don't know. I mean, I'm still having, problems, and I hope one day that I will be able to be more accepting of who I was, and if I can continue to inspire people, I mean, that's good. But my goal is to inspire myself, and if I can bring others with me along the way, great.
So I don't want to assume, but I'm guessing Tracy is your wife.
That's my wife.
Yes, she has commented saying, I have been married to Drew for 16 years, and his character has always been the same: sweet, charming, and unwaveringly reliable. His behaviors are light years away from where they were back then. And she also says he just needs to learn to love himself as much as I and his friends and family do.
Yeah, she's a much better person than I deserve, and I love her dearly.
What's it like to hear that people don't see those things and that they've either chosen or they see the parts of you that have always shone bright? What's that like to hear?
It's hard for me because all I see is the bad.
Yeah. No, I'm with you.
You know, and it's hard, especially with AmpGuard, because you know I've developed such a reputation for helping people and doing what's right and doing the hard fight regardless of the consequences, and standing up to people who people don't stand up to. But that I'm not doing anything that I wouldn't do day to day. You know, I think I'm just handling it differently. Like, it just, when people say things to me, I literally, you know, I'll tell them, you have no idea who I am, and it makes me laugh that you're saying that to me, because you literally have no idea what I'm capable of or what I'm willing to do. And I have to stop a second and realize that they don't know that.
Mm-hmm.
You don't know who the fuck you're talking
back.
to. Yeah.
Right. And I mean, I take pride in the fact that I have not hit somebody in anger in 17 years.
Yeah.
But that doesn't mean I won't. It just means I think about it now before doing it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And so, I mean, like I said, I keep working on myself. If I can help others along the way, cool. I'm all about helping other people, but I'm not going to sacrifice myself to help you. But if I can help you, I will give you the shirt off my back, because I can find another one.
And I'm also seeing the love pouring for Bunnie here too, as Mary says. I've known Bunnie for 29 years. She's always been kind, fun, and a loyal friend. Hurt to see her struggle, but it's amazing to see her fly.
So one time I was panhandling on Central and University. I was panhandling on Central and University. So high.
Yeah.
I didn't even know it. I didn't recognize. I walked up to the car and asked for $1, and it was Mary Kay and her partner at the time, who are still part of my life. You know, this is my sister. You know, and I said, "Do you have $1?" I remember, you know, and I snapped out of it, you know, and I don't think she had $1, but I know if Mary had $1, she would have gave me $1. Do you know what I mean? You know, so I've been very blessed. I learned at an early age, not early age, but like in my 20s. So I was able to forgive myself in my 30s. When you know better, you do better. And I learned that on Oprah Winfrey and Maya Angelou. When you know better, you do better.
It's
when you know
on my
better,
wall over there.
You do better. When you know better, you do better. And that's what's allowed me to forgive the younger version of me. And not just forgive her, but incorporate her into who I am today. And it's hard.
I'd like you to know she gave you $1.
She remembers.
I was altered, Mary. Yeah, I was altered.
Well, Patrick also wants to say recovery is possible. Love you, Bunnie, and you too, Kal, for being also here.
Thank you.
Yeah. So we're gonna wrap up here, and we're gonna start. So you guys will be in the green room for a second, and then we'll come back together off the air just to like check in. Yeah, I know this was a very personal show, for at least for me.
Yeah.
So thank you both for hanging out.
Yes, thank you so much for joining us today.
Yeah. So I can't, like, part of me is so hurting to hear Kal's experience, because it just resonates for me so deeply. Like, especially for me, at least. I don't know what his was, but for me, the shame of not being able to produce for my family, like, that always just, I was brutal to myself on that, because that's the one thing I'm supposed to be able to do as a dude, you know, like, I got to produce, I got to take care of my family, and this is how I do it. The notion that emotional presence might have mattered, all these other things. And I still struggle with that. Like, that's still present Like, I still think of myself as the waste of space guy because I don't produce money for my family. That's not how I take care of my family. So I don't know, it's really hard to hear, and it feels, the part of me is comforted to hear that, I'm not making this shit up. This really does exist for men differently.
I think that whole sense of guilt takes hold, and
Yeah.
there's gotta be that moment where you let go. I think, oh gosh, Cal has a wonderful wife, and Buddy has wonderful support. But
Yeah.
it's that
Thank
fact that
God for that.
once you learn to love yourself and know that they could have easily defined themselves on their past. They could have
Yep.
defined themselves on that, and they didn't. And I just look forward for the day, especially with Cal. He took a big step being on here today, and I do feel like the day will come that he can look at himself and go, "Yeah, I'm a good person." I was like,
God.
yeah.
Yeah. I mean, Dusty's posted on here, brother, you're honestly a person whom I can lean on, look up to, and love, man. And and just for the record, Dusty's, one of his real life gigs is as a minister. So like, he's not saying that because it's, yeah,
Yeah.
he's saying that because he knows. So yeah, Dusty and or Bunnie and Kal, God, when we started talking about this show, I looked at it, I was like, oh, this is. Yeah.
I'm just like, I'm just glad I didn't ugly cry. I'm like, yeah, okay, that it happened.
So
Like, I'm just
much.
like, I just, there were moments that, woo, they touched hard, but
Yeah.
they made it through. And
I'm gonna go eat some ice cream. Like,
yeah,
that's where I'm
I
at.
agree. I think I'm right there with you. So we're gonna sign off here. Thank you again for joining us this Monday. As you do every Monday, you continue to be a part of our mission to champion vulnerability as a core human strength. Once again, please like us on like us, really like us on YouTube. Subscribe so you always have our shows at your fingertips, and hit the notification button so you know when we have new content. And say goodnight, Royce.
Good night, Royce.
We'll see you next Monday. I love doing that to you.
Thanks.